Well, Clark Lee is starting off the summer right, gets a pair of commits at positions of need. He's becoming quite the recruiter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, what up? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. Thanks for making us part of your day. And shout out to the everydayers. Well, through the first two official visit weekends, Clark Lee, he lands a pair of dynamic commitments, one from a major position of need, and the other is a slash in the making. What do I mean by that? Well, we'll discuss that later. But what's important is that Clark Lee is turning into quite the recruiter. And apparently there's some more on the way. Who's next? We'll talk about it all here in just a minute. Mark Byington didn't want to get left out on the fun. He got a commitment of his own. We'll break him down. And then for Vandy football, back to them. Utah State and Georgia State games are very, very, very important now. I hate to say this with the way the Georgia State game played out last season, but you have to avoid a meltdown in those games. And how does that happen? We'll explain. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Man, it's quite impressive. So, talking about commitments. It's a commitment-filled day here on the Locked On Vandy podcast, and it's Clark Lee got him a pair of commits over the weekend. One just right before I started recording this. So this is some good news. This is some welcome news, and especially with the. I just noticed I had a typo, Izayah. Sorry, man. I left out an A in your name. It's right on the graphic though, but. You look at the positions of need, and one of the most glaring ones is the running back position. And you look at the depth chart, and you're like, what do you make of this? One injury could completely derail this entire room. I think Izayah Lee saw that, and he decided, after watching the Alabama game, he's like, that's pretty good. And then, at this camp, he's like, it's a pretty thin room. I'm going to get some immediate playing time if I get here. And he committed. So welcome, Izayah Lee. He's from Lancaster, Texas, running back commit. And this is a special one, man. And he's a 3-star, 4-star, depending on what service you look at. And really, honestly, it doesn't matter. Just watch his film. If you look him up on Huddle, if you look up his profiles, he has highlight reels, and those are quite impressive. And all you have to do is look at it to see that he's a special guy. Look at his offer list and to see that he's a special guy. I'm sure there's more than just these offers, but I think you can tell a lot by the film, how what level of ball he's playing. He's playing an upper level Texas ball, and when I say upper level, I just mean like the bigger schools and things like that. So it's something that. I really kind of look at that more so than the star rankings. I couldn't care less if he was a 2-star, 4-star, whatever. I know the higher the stars, obviously, the better the caliber. But I think there's some more nuanced things you have to look at when you watch the film. So do yourself a favor, go watch his Huddle highlights. You're going to be thoroughly impressed. He had offers from TCU, SMU, Kansas, and Utah. Probably much more than that, but those are the notable ones that I saw. So he's like Mr. Big 12. He rushed for almost 1,300 yards. That's 5.7 yards per carry. Scored 24 touchdowns. He also had 20 catches as well. So kind of an all-around back, contributing in the passing game as well. Very dynamic player when you watch him on film. He's somebody that really pops off at you, and you're like, man, this guy is going to be special within this offense, because when you have a zone-based offense, you have to have a running back with great vision, right? And we'll talk about how all of these attributes will come in handy for Mr. Izayah Lee. So great vision and burst at the point of attack. I think you have to, and what's not in there is patience, right? So I think patience kind of goes into the vision equation and the burst, because I think when you're ready to burst and when you're ready to hit the running lane, you're there. And you have to have great vision. You have to have great patience in order to make things happen there. So when you're watching his film, he kind of picks through the line of scrimmage. And they run a lot of gap schemes too at Lancaster. They'll run a lot of counter. I really like what they do dynamically. They move a lot pre-snap. They get him in some different spots around the offense, let him catch some screens. I think they move him around to kind of change the strength. And it's very cool kind of what they do. But when he gets the ball, the biggest thing that I notice, honestly, is he has great vision. He has great patience. He lets things develop, and he doesn't put himself in a position to where he's having to run sideways to get to the opening. He's always moving forward. See, running backs, there's a balance between these attributes. Like somebody that's patient is still always, somebody has really good patience and good vision, is always moving forward and always gaining ground and always one cut away from really being able to burst through the hole. And he does that, because when you have pulling linemen, when you have things that are developing, when you have double teams or combos that are reaching the second level, I think you have to kind of let it all develop. Now, there's some running backs that say they're patient, but really they just kind of stand there, and then they try to pick up speed 0 to, the 0 to 60 type thing, and they just can't hit the hole fast enough, and it closes up. And especially at the next level, that's not a great skill to have. You always got to be kind of gaining ground. You've always got to be I kind of liken it to being on skates. You have to kind of be on skates to be able to change direction real fast and be able to get into the run lane. And if it closes up real fast and another one opens up, you've got to, I think having the skill of being able to jump cut, to one hole behind or one hole ahead, they call it bang, bounce, and bend for running backs, and having the ability to do that effectively is really good. And having the ability to, when a run lane opens up, you're able to burst through it with great acceleration. He does that. Once he makes his decision, boom, it's like he shot out of a cannon. There's a couple plays, if you look at his highlight reel, and this is impressive. Okay. And this is why I think, this plays into what Clark Lee has been like. Clark Lee's able to get better playmakers, I think, lately than he has been, because I think people are more sure of, Vandy is up and coming. They're doing some things. They're on the map now. They're a little bit relevant. They play in a great conference. You're going to play a phenomenal schedule on national TV, and scouts are going to be all over the place. And I think the stock of the university has risen as far as recruiting goes, and you're getting better recruits. So when he finds the lane, he goes like he shot out of a cannon. And there's a couple plays where that happens, where he's kind of trailing the hip of the puller, and then all of a sudden puller makes the decision, boom, he goes. And I think there was one, he was upper red zone, scores like a 20-yard touchdown, let it all played out. Linebacker overruns it. He cuts back and hits his head on the goalpost untouched. Doesn't literally hit his head on the goalpost, but that's the only thing that was going to stop him. And so, that's kind of what I mean by that. There's several other plays where he gets contact, where he strings a play out like an outside zone. He checks the first aiming point, bounces it out to the next aiming point, just kind of almost like stair step bounce. And there's a couple plays where linebackers have got him dead to rights, and they don't get solid contact on him, but they get enough to where most running backs would go down. He stays up. Like he's got a good center of gravity. He runs behind his pads well, and he has great balance through contact. And of course, the home run ability is what stands out to me from that point of view. Several long touchdowns. Couple of touchdowns that materialize because he's patient enough to let everything play out, and then he hits the run lane, and I think he has that burst and that ability to make that happen. So that's going to be an exciting portion of this offense for him, and I think that's going to be, whoever's handing the ball, Berlowitz, it's going to be whoever, whatever quarterback, Jack Elliott maybe, I don't know. But whatever quarterback's going to be handing him the ball, it's not going to be Pavia because he won't be here soon enough to play with Diego Pavia. But it'll be whoever's next. And that's going to be kind of exciting. I'm curious to see once Pavia goes, who wins the quarterback one job? Is Berlowitz the one that hangs on to it? Is it St. Hilaire? Is it, does Dickey get a run at it his senior year? I mean, depending on what happens is going to determine a lot on how they use the running backs. And I think having a dynamic guy that can do a lot of different things is going to be really, really good because he's not going to be affected by drastic change at quarterback, so to speak. So, but we've got Chris Tangelo also committed. Like I said, great week. This has been a great couple of weeks for Clark Lee. Apparently, there's a couple of other commits that that we feel good about that aren't committed yet, but we feel pretty good about getting them before the month's over. And Izayah Lee is going to be very special watching his film. I'm really excited about it. And Chris Tangelo is going to be outstanding as well. Talk about what he brings to the table. We'll talk about that next. All right, but first we're going to talk about FanDuel. And right now, if you are, as I'm recording this, if you are watching this Pacers Thunder game and you want to jump in on maybe the Pacers covering this spread and get in on a live game, little live game action, go for it, man, because this finals is going to get interesting. There's highlight-worthy performances. There's major momentum shifts, things like that. There's all kind of stuff, and it's easy to stay in the game. FanDuel makes it that way. They make it simple before the tip and live. And you have player props, performance trends. You can build same-game parlays, and fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you're big into SGA, he's having a hell of a game right now. And if you want to jump in and build like a same game parlay of like SGA and Oklahoma City to cover, that might not be a bad one. Maybe you had a futures bet on the Thunder or the Pacers. So that's looking pretty good right now. But think about it, man. Just think about getting $200 in bonus bets. Think about the excitement you would feel if you bet like a SGA points over and under for your first $5 bet that hits and you get $200 in bonus bets. Just think about how stoked you would be. Now, are you new to FanDuel? Well, it's the perfect time to sign up if you're not, or if you haven't. You head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if that bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And you can make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to the everydayers. And it's your team every day. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to whoever's here. Raise your hand. We're going to do some roll call here. However you got here. Man, we're just talking about, this heater that Clark Lee's about to go on, right? He got two this weekend. And I think he's got more on the way. There's some people that are committed that hadn't told the world yet. But Izayah Lee, apologies in the graphics, spelled your name wrong. And then Chris Tangelo, who we're about to talk about right now. Chris Tangelo is a very interesting athlete, by the way. It's a tremendous gift for Clark Lee. And this just kind of, a side point to all of this is this, Clark Lee. These commits say a lot about Clark Lee's abilities, right? And then bringing it back to, is Clark Lee's turning into a heck of a recruiter, right? I think this Izayah Lee commitment, especially, like this guy was going to be all Big 12. Like he was going to stay in state and go to TCU. He was going to do whatever. He was going to go to Utah, play for Kyle Whittingham. I mean, this guy. I mean, just if you watch his film, you'll see. Just look at the ability that this guy had: 1,294 yards and 24 touchdowns in Texas big boy football. Right? I mean, just imagine that coming through the hole. Right? Imagine trying to tackle that. Right? A, if you try to square him up, he'll run you over. B, he may just leave you in the dust. I don't know. He's a home run threat. He's tough. He's physical. There's one play where he kept his legs churning. So getting guys like that just show like Vandy is turning some sort of corner. They have to be, right? You're not getting these caliber recruits if you're not turning the corner. You're getting these caliber recruits if you're doing all the right things, if your NIL game is strong. And I'm studying up on the House settlement, so that'll be a future episode on how that's going to affect Vanderbilt. I don't know that it will a whole lot, but we'll see. But I think there's a lot of great things happening for Vanderbilt athletics, and especially the sport of football. And speaking of special, really love this kid, Chris Tangelo. I think he is outstanding from the Bullis School in Maryland, coming from the DMV area, committed, Sunday, as I'm recording this today, really. And what I really like about him, 6'4", 6'5", depending on who's measuring and what article you're reading, but he's 6'4", 6'5". He's more of an athlete probably, but I think his height makes him very rangy and a good fit to play defensive back, and I think that's what Vanderbilt likes him as. I think that's what Clark Lee likes him as. He likes him as a defensive back. The guy has really good ball skills. He plays corner for the Bullis School. And just imagine looking out there and seeing that big 6'4" frame locking down your receiver. Just imagine the fear of a high school quarterback looking out there going, oh boy, he could, and I've made this analogy. And I said the same things with Colby Taylor. Like Colby Taylor, 6'4", just all you got to do is stick him out there into the boundary, and he just appears to just eat up space. He could, my theory is this: he could be the sorriest corner of all time, which he's not, but he could be, and people would still avoid him because he's 6'5". He's huge, and if you look the part at corner, oftentimes that discourages quarterbacks from looking your way. So I don't know that he'll play corner at Vanderbilt. I don't think he's naturally fast enough to backpedal, transition, and run with SEC receivers. But I think like a Brandon Fontenette role, kind of like a boundary safety role, just kind of like a utility defensive back, just kind of wherever kind of he fits into when he enrolls. I think he could be a special dude. His frame, his ability, his athleticism will make up for a lot. And watching his film, this dude is special, man. He's physical, man. He is absolutely physical. I love him as a strong safety, especially coming down to the boundary against the run. I mean, he will hit you, and he makes no bones about it. And typically, you get these guys with like lanky frames, and you get these guys that they don't necessarily have a strong desire to hit. Some do, but oftentimes they don't have a strong desire to hit. These lanky guys just can't bend far enough to make good contact, and a lot of times they just don't like to hit, which is why you don't see these massively tall. It's rare, I think, to see these massively tall defensive backs, right? It kind of goes beyond, a lot of times it goes beyond the conventional wisdom of playing the position, the perfect height that you need, things like that. And this one really kind of makes me. I know some people, they would probably question, and they'll watch this. You watch this film and you'll go, "Why is he not coming in as a wide receiver? This dude is an amazing wide receiver." But I think Clark Lee kind of has a keen eye to, okay, this guy has a unique set of abilities. He's physical, he's rangy, he gets downhill. He may not be able to turn and burn with the best receivers in the SEC, but I think he can play center field. I think he can come down on the run. I think we could, if we go too high look, we could stagger him, put his big tall butt down on the boundary, and really kind of make some teams nervous. And he sees that. He's the foresight to see that. And I know it's a risk to take him as a defensive back. And I know there's other schools that want him probably as a wide receiver. And I think Vandy pulling the trigger on this as a defensive back just kind of shows you the foresight and just the scouting ability that Clark Lee has on the defensive side of the ball. He has something specific in his mind. If he didn't, I don't think he offers this kid. This kid's not on defense, not good enough to just get an offer clear as day. At wide receiver, probably better chance at just getting an offer because he's 6'5", he can run and make some things happen with the ball in his hands. But I think as a defensive back, he's kind of in that weird place to where you're not just going to automatically offer him as a DB. You have to have something specific in mind. You have to see a specific trait that you're going to build around as a defensive back. And I think Clark Lee sees that. And I know that sounds like a negative way of saying it, but it's the truth. You know, at 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", depending on how you look at it, he's just like guys that are that tall just don't move backwards that fast. You know, they're not quite as shifty, as rangy as some of the shorter guys because they're just taller, lankier. You know, it just lanky people aren't quite as quick like that unless you're playing in the NBA, which none of those guys are actually lanky, but those guys are some of the best athletes in the world across any sport. But, you know, I just think some of the skills that he has, you know, offensively are phenomenal. Offensively are elite. And I would love to see him contribute at wide receiver as well. Could be the next Slash. When I say Slash, he could be DB / wide receiver. Those of you that are old enough to remember the Cordell Stewart days of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But it's, you know, I'm really excited about this one nonetheless. I'm really kind of excited to see where he fits into Clark Lee's defense. I'm thinking safety. I'm thinking boundary safety. Could also, if he develops, could also be a Colby Taylor type role. You know, somebody that could play the boundary corner, somebody that's big, long, physical enough at the point of attack, could play like a cover 2 to the boundary and just sit there and eat space and intimidate quarterbacks and allow your safeties to play free over the top and really kind of do some things unique coverage-wise. Because I do think having that big of a frame, people aren't going to come at him. They're just not. And so I'm really excited about how this one shakes out. This is a commitment that everybody's kind of wondering what's happening, but I can see it. I can see with his range. I could see where, you know, I feel like I can see where Clark Lee's thinking with this, and this is good, man. Like, I don't think you're throwing darts on some of the. Like, I think early on when Vanderbilt was still just putrid and people just were like, "God, it's just Vandy." Like, I think you had to take a few dart throws, and I think Clark Lee did. He didn't hit those dart throws. Is what led to the 2023 season. Now, I think his recruiting is more pointed. I think he's able to get some of the guys that he wants because he's on more secure footing. First of all, but second of all, this guy's never lost the ability to evaluate defensive players, especially. But I think he's always been a good recruiter and a good evaluator. I just don't think that the Vanderbilt brand allowed him to recruit as well as he usually does and be able to get the guys that he feels are fits to his defense. He hadn't been able to get a ton of those guys because of the Vanderbilt brand for so long had been pretty bad. But now they've turned a corner. He's getting guys, right? He's getting big guys like this. He's getting big SEC bodies. Like, just imagine him playing in an SEC game. Like, this is going to be a lot of fun. So, I think this is really good. But Mark Byington got in on the action of commitments, and I do have to talk about Utah State, Georgia State, and those games and how important those are, and getting those wins. But I'll be there next. All right, wrapping up the show here pretty soon. Man, oh man, time flies when you're having fun. But, I think Vanderbilt's turning a corner in recruiting. This is absolutely outstanding. The university, I think, is just kind of on a heater now. Things are getting really, really good for Vanderbilt athletics. And that also goes for Vanderbilt basketball. Also, if you need a second listen, when you're done here, Locked On Transfer Portal, Locked On SEC, Locked On Ole Miss, any one of those shows will be just great. Steve Willis does a phenomenal job on Locked On Ole Miss. He's the number one Ole Miss show for a reason. All right, but Mark Byington got in on another transfer portal guy, Eastern Kentucky transfer George Kimble. Now, I thought the roster was done, but it's not. He is a transfer commit out of Eastern Kentucky. He's 6'2". He's a guard, and he's somebody that I think it's He's not going to play immediately, and I don't think they need him to. He's a guy that's going to come in, rehab, and then be able to play next year. He averaged 18 points in his sophomore season at Eastern Kentucky. He spent his freshman season at Eckerd College. He averaged 19 points per game there. Came into Division I. I think Vanderbilt has a roster where they can take a guy like this, and he can go and rehab and just absolutely get better. And we'll see kind of how that comes. The depth is going to be there. If he can, the faster he can recover, I think the faster I think he can contribute. And he's going to have to, he's going to take advantage of these brand new facilities. He's going to get back. He's going to rehab, and I think he's going to be very, very good. Recovering from this major knee injury. So he's a scorer. He's a guy that can get to the rack. He's a guy that can fit in defensively as well. He's just kind of an all-around good player, a pest on defense, kind of a pest on offense. Just kind of gets there. There's no real way of kind of explaining his game. He just kind of happens. So I'm excited about that, but it's going to be a decent recovery time, and he's still not ready to go. He's not going to be ready to go day one, but that doesn't matter. I think he's going to be okay. All right, but I do have to talk about two of the more important games, two games that I thought that I didn't think were going to be just of utmost importance, but it's the Georgia State, Utah State games. Okay, and why are these important? Okay, I think we all know what I'm about to say. You can't have a meltdown against Georgia State. You can't have a meltdown against Utah State. Now, you're coming off two really important games here. You have two really important home games. The Georgia State game is going to be likely the unveiling of the South End Zone. I don't think it'll be ready by Charleston Southern, but I think the extra time will give it time to get ready for Georgia State or Utah State. And so against Georgia State, that's the revenge factor is there. Never thought I'd be saying that. But I think this game, they're going to come in extra focused. And that's the biggest key to me is the focus. Like when you watch that game last year, and even the Ball State game, I think had a little bit of lackadaisicalness to it as well. And I think if Ball State would have been better, they would have had a chance to upset Vanderbilt. I mean, there were times in that game where I was just like, what is happening here? Like Ball State is, outplaying us, and this is not good, right? It all comes down to focus, right? And Ball State, you had just come off of Alabama, you had just come off some really tough games, and you get Ball State, right? You get some reprieve. And that was naturally going to be a game where there was a little bit of letdown in effort, but I thought even with the letdown in effort, even if it downgraded just a little bit, they still had the talent to win that one comfortably. And I think the score ended up being more comfortable. But that game was pretty nerve-wracking. It was very nervy. It was very like, okay, let's put them away. What are we doing? That kind of game. Georgia State was just an excuse. I think everything about it was I think the team was totally checked out. I don't think anybody was on the same page. I thought, they felt, I thought that they had a bunch of overconfidence coming in after beating Virginia Tech, in overtime, and then beating Alcorn State. Like, I'm not sure how much more confidence or fake confidence you could have had after those two games, but they did. They felt they were untouchable, and they get into Georgia State, and it just all fell apart. They didn't want to be there. The stadium was weird. The road trip was probably weird. There was a little bit of weather around their trip, and it was probably humid, and it's just a lot of factors. You had this really long equation that equaled no mental focus. I think mental focus, that variable was at zero, and you can't. And when you times it by zero, it becomes zero, right? And that was that's what they were multiplying by. They were multiplying by zero, and everything else became zero in that game, and they ended up losing. And so, yes, Georgia State made some plays, but you have to. You can't lose that game. I mean, there's no other way to say it. You just can't lose that game. It's just inexcusable. And it comes down to focus. It comes down to execution in that game. You were terrible running the ball. You couldn't create any running lanes because it just didn't seem like you were there. And I think this year is going to be different. If you're going to have an 8-9 win season, you can't even come, you have to dominate those games. You have to blow out Georgia State, which I think they will. You have to blow out Utah State. I think they can and ultimately will. But, I think having this core of guys living through that experience, I guarantee you they would say the same thing. It's inexcusable. It can't happen. And they're going to police it better. And their home games too, that helps. But they're going to police this better, I think. And they're going to make sure the guys are super focused. No nonsense. They're not going to be feeling themselves. There's a chance that they could be licking their wounds at 1-2. Like that's on the table. I think at worst they'll be 2-1. I think at worst. I think worst case you lose to South Carolina. I don't think Virginia Tech is better than Vanderbilt this year. They weren't last year, and Vanderbilt has a better roster than they did last year, even at the beginning of the year. So this is going to be an interesting game, interesting set of games, and we'll see kind of where they're at on that. But man, I just looked at the time. We definitely went over. It seems to be a thing with me. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great week. We'll come back at you next time here on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll see you back here next time. Anchor down. Peace out. Behave yourselves.